Last week we looked at bellows energy arising from conjunction and opposition. This week we look at sword, masculine energy, and cauldron, feminine energy. They are the twin aspects of bellows energy, two principles working together in conjunction and opposition for harmony and to bring forth life. All of us have both masculine and feminine energy because all of us are made in the image of God, who contains within the Godhead the whole spectrum of life and is the ground of our being. Sword energy is cutting, dominating, penetrating and piercing. It is the masculine phallic energy. Cauldron energy is nurturing, cyclical, enfolding and inclusive. It is the uterine feminine energy. Sword energy competes and cauldron energy collaborates. Sword energy takes charge and cauldron energy takes turns. Neither is preferable. Both are essential, but they must be kept in balance, like the bellows, in order to be life-giving. Out of balance, too much of one, and both become destructive. Let's look now at our infographic of the heaven tree. You may have that somewhere near you where you can easily see it, but I'll put it here so that we can work with it. This is the tree of life. You can see the bellows principle at work. Its roots are in earth and its branches are in heaven. The tree of life reconciles into a dynamic unity, the earthly and the heavenly. At the centre of the tree of life you can see, picked out in golden light, the cross of Christ. And the cross is characterised by sword energy, cuts through. When Jesus died, the temple veil was rent asunder. The cross cut through our separation, the separation between heaven and earth. The cross overcame the power of death, establishing Jesus as Lord. But please note how sword and cauldron energy always work in balance, because when the temple veil was rent asunder, the effect was to enfold and include all of those who had been deemed beyond the pale, unsanctified, shut out. When the sword of the cross cut through exclusion, it enabled the cauldron energy of enfolding and inclusion to establish. By the sword energy of his death on the cross, Jesus opened the new and living way. That's what those words there say, a new and living way. This is not a dead thing like the metalled road surface of a motorway. It is a living way. So I've depicted it here like a blood system with arteries balancing veins. So you see again the twin principle, the bellows principle of balance. And the arterial blood streams down to earth from heaven, giving life. And as the deoxygenized blood in veins carries away toxins, so all that no longer serves us, or mistakes we've made, all we are ashamed of, is borne along the veins of the new and living way to be returned and recycled into new life. The new and living way is open for all of us, joining earth to heaven. And for this reason, although birth is still balanced by death, we ourselves have eternal life in the new and living way of Jesus. We are joined up to heaven now. And the infographic shows you how Jesus did this. It is said that the world turns, but the cross stands. So the sword energy of the cross is fixed and dominant, while the cauldron energy of the earth is always cyclical, waxing and waning through birth and death like the moon. So what happened was that the cosmic Christ entered our turning world in the power of the incarnation to share our human life as Jesus. He came down and entered this world in his birth, and then further down into our death in his crucifixion. Right down, he was buried down into the roots of the heaven tree. But the grave cannot hold him, because in him is our life. And so he rises up from the grave in resurrection, up, 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 in the ascension to heaven again. And thus he joins it all up. He enfolds heaven and earth into one. Now, our own lives, yours and mine, are continually cycling through birth, dying, rising, ascending, and onward into new life. You can see it in your own experiences, ideas, and different phases of life. You enter and discover something new, you explore it, you move beyond it, integrate what you've learned, and take it up into the next phase. And the picture of the heaven tree shows how life is seasonal, always cycling through, breathing in and breathing out, being born and dying. But these are aspects of life. Life does not end at death. Death is an aspect of life. The world turns, but the cross stands, and in the cross is our eternal life. Now, today is the feast of Pentecost, which we haven't mentioned yet, but which completes the cycle of healing and reconciliation we see in the life of Jesus. So Jesus is born into humanity at the incarnation, enters our death in crucifixion, goes right down into the roots of the earth, picks up the lowest and the least and the lost, and gathers all of it, taking it with him through resurrection. With his scars, remember, he takes our pain and disfigurement with him, up the venous system of the new and living way that he opened, takes all of what it means to be human, all humanity, up with him into heaven. And now we are all connected up. The new and living way is open. The Spirit can pour down onto all flesh. So on Pentecost Sunday, we remember the occasion when the Spirit came down on the disciples like a rushing mighty wind and sat on their heads like tongues of flame. So the Spirit arrives among us both in the pointy sword energy of a flame and the whirling cauldron energy of wind. And please note, it says the Spirit is poured out on all flesh, not on an elite subsection. Everyone. Poured down, sword energy, on all flesh, cauldron energy. The prophetic life that was once the privilege of a chosen few is now the responsibility and the gift of everyone. You will notice that in the infographic of the heaven tree, there are two wings with symbols representing the different religions of the world. Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me." And when he opened the new and living way and poured out his Spirit onto all flesh, that meant people of all faiths can be drawn into this cycle of incarnation, crucifixion, resurrection and ascension, to travel from earth to heaven in the new and living way, opened for all humanity with no exceptions, allowing the Spirit to be poured out on all flesh and opening a permanent highway to heaven. In the cycle of the church's year, we have travelled through Jesus' incarnation, crucifixion, death and burial, resurrection and ascension, and this Sunday at Pentecost we mark the moment when the cycle bears fruit in completion. Last Sunday at Ascension we saw how Jesus had established the new and living way, and now this Sunday we see how he uses it as a kind of massive and marvellous shoot for his ever new and inexhaustible Spirit to pour into our lives forever. That's what Jesus did. That was his work of reconciliation, what he came here to do. And he did it for us. And every part of it belongs to every other part. It is all one, an integrated whole, operating in harmony.